The wheat field swayed gently in the afternoon breeze as Tom Miller chased his remote-controlled airplane across the open space behind his house. The 8-year-old boy's laughter echoed across the farm, mixing with the distant sound of tractors and the gentle rustling of crops ready for harvest. His mother watched from the kitchen window, smiling as she prepared lemonade for her son. The summer sun hung high in the cloudless sky, casting short shadows on the ground. Tom's airplane dipped and soared, its small electric motor humming as it cut through the air. He had saved his allowance for 3 months to buy it, and the joy on his face showed it was worth every penny. Above the peaceful scene, hidden by advanced cloaking technology, an Imperial scout ship hovered in observation mode. Captain Gray stood at his command station, growing increasingly frustrated with his mission. For the past week, his crew had been gathering data about this backwater planet, and he found the assignment beneath him. "This is a waste of Imperial resources," he muttered, watching the primitive settlements through their surveillance feeds. "These creatures barely understand basic spaceflight." His second-in-command nodded in agreement, both of them unaware that their ship's cloaking field was slowly failing due to a malfunction in the primary energy core. Tom's airplane suddenly caught a strong gust of wind, carrying it higher than usual. The boy squinted against the sun, trying to keep track of his precious toy. That's when he noticed something strange in the sky. A shimmer, like heat waves on a hot road, but much higher up. His natural curiosity took over, and he walked closer, still controlling his airplane. The ship's warning systems blared without warning. "Cloaking field failure imminent," the computer announced. Captain Gray's eyes widened in alarm. Their position was about to be compromised, and Imperial protocol was clear. No primitive species could be allowed to confirm their existence. "Emergency ascent," he ordered, but in their haste to retreat, they didn't notice the small flying object that had drifted into their path. The airplane struck one of their sensor arrays, causing a power surge through their destabilized systems. A bolt of energy discharged downward. Tom didn't even have time to scream. The energy beam struck him directly, and in an instant, the bright young life was extinguished. The grass around him turned black in a perfect circle, and his remote control fell from lifeless hands. His mother, walking out with the lemonade, saw everything. Her scream pierced the quiet afternoon as the glass pitcher shattered on the porch steps. Above, the Imperial ship's cloaking field completely failed for 3 crucial seconds before emergency systems engage. Long enough for dozens of smartphones to capture its image. Long enough for nearby security cameras to record its presence. Long enough to change everything. Captain Gray stared at his tactical display in horror. "Get us out of here." Maximum speed. The ship shot upward, breaking through the atmosphere in seconds. But the damage was done. Behind them, they left a grieving mother, a scorched circle in a wheat field, and evidence that would soon spread across every network on Earth. In the Imperial ship's command center, the second-in-command spoke quietly. "Sir, should we report this to command?" Captain Gray's face hardened. "Report what?" "A primitive child with a primitive toy. The Empire doesn't concern itself with such insignificant matters. Log it as a routine observation mission. Nothing more." As the ship disappeared into the depths of space, neither officer considered the consequences of their actions. They didn't understand that humans were different from the other species they had encountered. They didn't know that humans would unite in ways they had never seen before. They couldn't comprehend that the death of one child would ignite a fury that would shake their empire to its foundations. On Earth, Tom's mother held her son's body, her tears falling on his still face. Above her, the video of the alien ship was already spreading across social media. In homes, offices, and government buildings across the planet, the footage played again and again. Humanity had just received irrefutable proof of alien life, but instead of wonder and excitement, their first contact was marked by an act of casual cruelty that would never be forgiven or forgotten. The video of Tom Miller's death reached 10 million views within the first hour. By sunset, it had spread to every corner of the globe. Emergency rooms across America reported a surge of patients experiencing panic attacks as the reality of alien existence and alien cruelty sank in. In Washington, D.C., the president sat in the Situation Room, watching the footage for the 20th time. Military analysts had confirmed the video's authenticity, and similar reports were flooding in from other countries. The alien ship had been spotted over Beijing, Moscow, London, and dozens of other locations in the past week. Mr. President, the UN Security Council is requesting an emergency session, his chief of staff reported, hand trembling as she held her tablet. Every major world leader is demanding action. The president stood up, his face grave. Then let's give them action. Get me a direct line to every major capital. It's time humanity stood together. Within hours, motorcades rushed through the streets of New York City as world leaders converged on the UN headquarters. For the first time in history, petty rivalries and old grudges were set aside. The death of one American child had become everyone's tragedy. Inside the General Assembly Hall, the Russian president spoke first. Today, we are not Russians, Americans, Chinese, or Europeans. Today, we are humans, and we have witnessed an atrocity against one of our children. His words, usually met with skepticism, received unanimous applause. The Chinese premier stood next. Our scientists have analyzed the technology displayed in the video. We have similar footage from our territories. We propose sharing all our technological research, effective immediately. The announcement sent whispers through the assembly. China had never openly offered to share military technology before. In orbit, military satellites from various nations tracked multiple alien vessels moving through the solar system. The ships made no attempt to communicate, treating Earth's observation attempts with the same dismissal a human might show an anthill. Back on Earth, at the Miller farm, thousands of people gathered. They brought flowers, toys, and letters. Parents hugged their children tighter, looking up at the sky with newfound fear and anger. News crews broadcasted the scene worldwide, where millions watched as Tom's mother addressed the crowds. "My son," she began, her voice steady despite her tears, "loved to watch the stars. He dreamed of being an astronaut. Now I know there's life up there, and they took him from us like he meant nothing." She held up his broken remote-controlled airplane. "They need to learn that every human life matters." Her words became a rallying cry. Social media united under #JusticeForTom and #HumanityUnited. Former enemies found themselves working together in hastily assembled task forces. Military commanders shared intelligence, while scientists collaborated across borders. In a secret facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Roberts ended a classified briefing with an unprecedented announcement. "For the past 50 years, we've recovered and studied their technology. Crashes, lost equipment, signals. Every major power has a piece of the puzzle. Now, we put those pieces together." The world's best engineers and scientists were gathered, their research spread across holographic displays. Decades of hidden advances were finally revealed. America's anti-gravity research, Russia's shield penetration technology, China's energy weapon developments. Each country had solved different pieces of the alien technology puzzle. Dr. Walker, the lead scientist, pointed to a complex diagram. "Their arrogance is their weakness. They think we're primitive, so their defenses are designed to stop advanced energy weapons. They never considered we might approach problems differently." As the day ended, Earth had changed forever. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Hidden weapons were brought out of storage. Classified satellites activated dormant systems. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this possibility, even if they hadn't known it. In orbit, an Imperial observation ship noted the increased activity with mild amusement. The primitives were agitated, but what could they possibly do? The Empire had conquered countless worlds, and none had ever successfully resisted. They were about to learn that humans were different. Earth wasn't just another primitive world to be observed and dismissed. It was humanity's home. and they had just witnessed the murder of one of their children. The Empire's easy dismissal of Tom's death would prove to be the beginning of their end. Emperor Marcus lounged on his crystal throne aboard the Imperial capital ship, watching Earth's transmissions with growing irritation. The massive view screen showed crowds of humans gathering, their leaders making speeches, and their military forces mobilizing. The Emperor's scaled fingers tapped impatiently on his armrest. 300 worlds bow to us, he said to his advisors, and these primitives think they can demand justice. His laughter echoed through the throne room, joined nervously by his courtiers. The Emperor's mood swings were legendary, and no one dared disagree. A junior officer entered the chamber, bowing deeply. Your Imperial Majesty, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They demand a response to their diplomatic message. The Emperor's amusement vanished. Demands. They dare to make demands. He stood up, his ceremonial armor glinting under the ship's lights. Show me their message. The view screen changed to show the United Nations Assembly. Representatives from Earth's nations spoke about peace, justice, and the need for diplomatic relations. They requested the Empire acknowledge the death of Tom Miller and surrender those responsible for trial under Earth's laws. Emperor Marcus watched in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. When the message ended, he turned to his chief diplomat. Tell me about these humans. What makes them think they can speak to us this way? The diplomat consulted his datapad. They're a level 3 civilization, Your Majesty. They've reached their moon, but haven't established colonies beyond their planet. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They still use combustion engines and silicon-based computers. Primitive indeed, the Emperor sneered. Yet they speak of justice as if they were our equals. He walked to the massive window overlooking his fleet. Thousands of warships stretched into the distance, each capable of destroying entire continents. The military advisor cleared his throat. There is one unusual detail, Your Majesty. They adapt remarkably quickly. Our long-term studies show they advance faster than any species we've encountered. Some suggest we should be cautious. Silence. Emperor Marcus turned sharply. I will not show caution to primitives who don't know their place. Send them our response. Let them learn what it means to demand anything from the Empire. Across Earth's communication networks, screens flickered as the Imperial message began playing. The Emperor's image appeared, his alien features twisted in a look of contempt. Insignificant beings of Earth, he began, his words automatically translated into every human language. Your species' arrogance exceeds your understanding. The death of one primitive offspring is beneath the Empire's concern. Your demands are dismissed. Your existence is tolerated only because you are too primitive to be worth conquering. Be grateful for our disinterest in your world. Any further demands will be met with appropriate force. The message ended abruptly. In the UN Assembly Hall, silence fell. The Chinese premier turned to the American president, speaking quietly. They don't even see us as people. No, the president replied, his voice hard. They see us as insects. Remember what happened the last time someone underestimated human resolve. Around the world, the Emperor's message played again and again. In homes and offices, in bars and town squares, humans watched their worst fears confirmed. The aliens weren't here for peace or friendship. They saw humans as lesser beings, not worth even basic respect or dignity. In the secret mountain facility, Dr. Walker watched the message with his team. They're shields, he said suddenly, drawing everyone's attention. Look at the shimmer around the Emperor. They're using the same technology as their scout ships. They haven't upgraded it in centuries. Why would they? No one's ever challenged them. General Roberts nodded slowly. And that's their fatal mistake. They think their technology is so superior that they don't need to improve it. They've forgotten how to innovate. The Emperor's dismissive message had just confirmed humanity's greatest advantage. The Empire had grown complacent in their power, while humans had spent their entire history adapting, improving, and overcoming challenges. Now they had a new challenge, and they would face it as they had faced every other, with determination, ingenuity, and the unshakable will to prove their worth. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Walker stood in the massive underground hangar, looking up at humanity's secret weapon. The ship gleamed under the bright lights, its hull a patchwork of technologies reverse-engineered from decades of alien crashes and recovered artifacts. Unlike the sleek Imperial vessels, this ship was built for function over form, bristling with unusual modifications. "She's not pretty," Walker said to the gathered military leaders, "but she'll get the job done." He walked to a holographic display showing the ship's internal systems. "We built her differently because we think differently. Every failure taught us something new." The room was filled with the world's top scientists and military commanders. They had spent the last week reviewing everything humanity had learned about Imperial technology. Crashed scout ships in Russia, a damaged engine core in China, communication devices in America, pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. "Their shields are based on deflecting energy weapons," Walker explained, pointing to a diagram. "They've used the same technology for centuries because no one ever tried anything different." He pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show a new weapon design. "So we created these instead." The weapon was remarkably simple. Instead of energy beams, it fired specially designed projectiles. "Physical ammunition," Walker continued, "enhanced with our own gravity manipulation technology. Their shields aren't designed to stop physical objects moving at these speeds. They never thought anyone would be primitive enough to try." In another part of the facility, engineers worked on dozens of similar ships. Each one incorporated lessons learned from studying alien technology, but with distinctly human approaches. Where Imperial ships relied on pure energy shields, these vessels used layered defenses. Where alien weapons focused on raw power, human weapons emphasized precision and unexpected angles of attack. General Roberts walked through the production area, watching teams from different countries working together. Russian engineers collaborated with American scientists. Chinese technicians worked alongside European experts. The death of Tom Miller had erased decades of distrust in a matter of days. "How many ships can we build?" Roberts asked the production chief. "With every nation's resources committed, 50 within the week, hundreds more in the next month." The chief gestured to the busy factory floor. "We've been preparing for something like this for years. We just didn't know it." Above ground, the world watched Imperial ships moving through the solar system, their presence now obvious since they no longer bothered hiding. They expected fear from the humans. Instead, their arrogant display gave Earth's scientists valuable data about their movements and formations. In orbit, hidden satellites tracked every Imperial ship. These satellites, secretly launched over decades, carried sensors specifically designed to study alien technology. Now they fed a constant stream of information to the mountain base, helping perfect humanity's countermeasures. Walker led the military leaders to a testing chamber. Inside, a captured Imperial shield generator hummed softly. "Watch this," he said, activating their new weapon. The projectile, barely visible to the naked eye, passed straight through the alien shield and buried itself in the target behind it. "They designed their defenses to stop what they thought we might eventually develop," Walker explained. "Energy weapons, plasma cannons, laser systems. But we didn't follow their technological path. We took what we learned from them and made it our own." In the command center, Admiral Stone studied the tactical displays. Imperial ships moved in predictable patterns, following strategies unchanged for generations. "They fight like they've forgotten what it means to face a real enemy," she observed. "They've grown comfortable in their power." The first human ship was nearly ready for launch. Unlike the Empire's arrogant display of force, this vessel would strike from hiding. Humanity had learned patience. They had endured the Empire's insults, their dismissal, their casual cruelty. But beneath the mountains, in secret facilities around the world, they had also learned how to fight back. The Empire thought they were facing primitive beings who barely understood spaceflight. They were about to face an enemy that had spent decades preparing for this moment, an enemy that had turned their own technology against them in ways they never imagined possible. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of humanity's first warship, the Justice, as it moved silently through space. The vessel's experimental stealth systems, combining human ingenuity with reversed-engineered alien tech, kept them invisible to Imperial sensors. 20 more ships followed in formation, each carrying weapons the Empire had never seen before. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer whispered. Even though the Empire couldn't hear them, the crew spoke quietly. Years of hiding their preparations had taught them to be careful. The target came into view, an Imperial observation post orbiting Mars. The facility's arrogant designers had built it in plain sight, not bothering to hide it after the Emperor's dismissive message to Earth. 3 Imperial warships guarded the station, their crews lazy and unconcerned. "Remember," Stone transmitted to the fleet, "we hit them exactly as planned. No hesitation, no mercy." "For Tom." The words "for Tom" echoed back from every ship. The Justice moved first. Its human-designed gravity weapons disrupted the space around the first Imperial ship before they even knew they were under attack. The alien vessel's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against the focused gravitational waves that twisted their hull like paper. "First target disabled," Stone's tactical officer reported. "Their distress signal is going out." "Good." Stone allowed herself a small smile. "Let them call for help. That's part of the plan." The other human ships struck their targets with devastating precision. Projectiles moving at impossible speeds smashed through Imperial shields. Gravity weapons crushed hull plates. Computer viruses, designed over decades of studying alien technology, shut down their systems. The Imperial crews barely had time to realize they were under attack. Their commanders, trained to fight traditional battles against traditional enemies, found themselves facing an opponent that didn't follow any rules they understood. Multiple Imperial ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, the sensor officer announced. They're responding to the distress call. 8 Imperial warships appeared near Mars, their weapons charging. Their commander's voice boomed across all channels. "Primitive creatures, you dare to attack the Empire. Your deaths will serve as an example too." His transmission cut off as the second wave of human ships dropped their stealth fields. They had been waiting for this, knowing the Empire's arrogance would lead them into a trap. The Imperial ships, clustered together in their standard attack formation, made perfect targets. "Fire everything," Stone ordered. Her fleet launched their full arsenal. Gravity weapons distorted space around the Imperial ships, while specialized projectiles pierced their weakened shields. Computer systems crashed as human viruses spread through their networks. The Imperial ships tried to fight back, but their energy weapons splashed harmlessly against the layered defenses of the human vessels. They attempted to retreat, but found their faster-than-light drives wouldn't respond. "Their computers are completely infected," Stone's tech officer reported. "They're locked out of their own systems." In less than an hour, 11 Imperial ships had been destroyed or disabled. The observation post, humanity's primary target, was a drifting wreck. The Empire had just lost more ships in a single battle than in the previous 100 years combined. Stone opened a channel to all surviving Imperial crews. "This message is for your Emperor. You killed an innocent child and dismissed our calls for justice. You called us primitive. You thought we weren't worth your concern." She paused, letting her words sink in. "That was your mistake. This is just the beginning." The human fleet gathered the disabled Imperial ships, their crews now prisoners. Stone sent a brief message to Earth. "First strike successful. The Empire bleeds." Across Earth, people celebrated their first victory, but in the mountain base, Dr. Walker and his team were already analyzing data from the battle, looking for ways to improve their weapons. They knew the Empire would respond with massive force once they recovered from their shock. But for the first time in Imperial history, someone had struck them hard and survived. The myth of their invincibility was broken. The Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for centuries, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity, an enemy fighting for justice, driven by grief and rage, and armed with weapons they never saw coming. Emperor Marcus smashed his crystal throne, sending shards scattering across the command deck. The display in front of him showed the wreckage of his ships near Mars, along with the humiliating footage of their defeat. His most experienced commanders stood silent, fear evident in their rigid postures. "Impossible," he roared, his scales darkening with rage. "How dare these primitives destroy Imperial ships? How dare they take our crews prisoner?" He turned to his fleet commander. "Launch the Armada. All of it. I want that planet turned to ash." Across Imperial space, thousands of warships received the call to battle. The Empire had not mobilized such a force in centuries. The massive ships moved into formation, their crews confident that sheer numbers would crush these upstart humans. Deep inside the mountain base on Earth, Dr. Walker studied the incoming fleet data. "Just as we predicted," he told Admiral Stone over the secure channel. "They're moving in traditional attack formations. No adaptations, no new strategies. They're fighting this war like they fought their last one, 300 years ago." Stone's voice crackled through the speaker. "Their arrogance makes them predictable. Launch Phase 2. Launch Phase 2, Walker confirmed. Scattered throughout the solar system, hidden human ships waited in stealth mode. They had positioned themselves days ago, preparing for the Empire's obvious response. As the Imperial Armada approached Earth, they found themselves under attack from all directions. The Empire's neat formations broke apart as gravity weapons twisted space around their ships. Their standardized shield frequencies, unchanged for generations, offered no protection against humanity's innovative weapons. Computer viruses spread from ship to ship through their interconnected networks. Emperor Marcus watched in growing horror as his fleet's casualties mounted. "Impossible," he shouted again, but with less conviction. "They're savages, primitives. How are they doing this?" On the Justice, Admiral Stone coordinated the attack. Human ships moved like wolves among sheep, striking fast and vanishing before the Empire could respond effectively. Their smaller vessels slipped through gaps in Imperial formations, targeting command ships with precision strikes. "Enemy flagship detected," Stone's tactical officer reported. "They're trying to hide it behind our front lines." Stone smiled grimly. "Not anymore. All ships execute Pattern Miller." Named after the boy whose death had started this war, Pattern Miller was unlike anything the Empire had seen before. Human ships accelerated to speeds the Empire thought impossible for primitive vessels. They used the enemy's own ships as shields, letting Imperial weapons hit their own vessels in their attempt to strike the humans. The Emperor's flagship, a massive vessel designed to inspire awe rather than fight effectively, found itself isolated as human ships systematically destroyed its escorts. Its oversized weapons couldn't track the smaller, faster human vessels. "Your Majesty," the ship's captain said, his voice shaking, "we need to retreat. We've lost a third of the fleet. Nothing in our tactical database matches their fighting style." The Emperor stared at the battle displays in disbelief. His mighty armada, pride of the Empire, was being torn apart by ships he could barely see. The humans weren't fighting like any species he had encountered before. They didn't follow the rules of space combat that had governed warfare for centuries. As his flagship shuddered under another hit, the Emperor made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours before. "Signal the retreat," he ordered. "All ships, fall back to Imperial space." The order spread through the surviving Imperial ships. They began to turn, trying to establish faster-than-light trajectories. But the humans had anticipated this too. Hidden mines, placed along the expected retreat paths, detonated as the Imperial ships fled. In the end, less than half of the Empire's mighty armada escaped the solar system. The rest were destroyed or captured, their crews learning firsthand that the primitives they had dismissed were far more advanced than anyone had imagined. On Earth, people celebrated again, but the military leaders knew this was just the beginning. The Empire had lost its first major fleet battle in centuries, but they still controlled hundreds of worlds. However, they had learned a costly lesson. Humanity wasn't just fighting for victory, they were fighting for justice, and they would not stop until they had it. News of the Imperial fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On hundreds of worlds under Empire control, enslaved species watched smuggled footage of human ships destroying the supposedly invincible Imperial warships. Hope, long forgotten under centuries of oppression, began to stir. 6 months had passed since Tom Miller's death. Earth's forces, now battle-hardened and even more advanced, pushed steadily into Imperial space. Every captured ship and base provided new technology to adapt, new weaknesses to exploit. But more importantly, they found allies. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the Justice, looking at the representatives of 7 different alien species. Each had suffered under Imperial rule. Each had seen their children killed or enslaved, and each had decided that humanity's cause was their own. The Empire called us primitive, Stone told them, but they forgot something important. When you treat people as less than nothing, when you kill their children without thought, you give them nothing left to lose. And that makes them dangerous. The alien representatives nodded. They had watched humans fight in ways no one had imagined possible. Imperial strongholds fell to surprise attacks. Supply lines were cut by ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. The Empire's rigid military doctrine had no answer for human innovation and determination. On the Imperial throne world, Emperor Marcus faced his first rebellion in 3 centuries of rule. A third of his worlds had declared independence, protected by human ships and armed with human weapons. His own military commanders questioned his decisions, watching their fleets fall to an enemy that refused to fight by the old rules. "Your Majesty," his last loyal advisor said, "the humans have reached the core worlds. Their allies grow stronger each day. We must sue for peace while we still can." The Emperor stared at the battle reports. 50 years of human advancement had been compressed into 6 months of war. Their weapons evolved with each battle, while Imperial technology remained static, bound by tradition and arrogance. A message arrived from Earth. The Emperor opened it, expecting another demand for surrender. Instead, he saw Tom Miller's mother speaking directly to him. "You killed my son," she said, her voice steady. "You thought he didn't matter. You thought we were beneath your notice. Now look at your empire falling apart. Look at your slaves rising up. Look at your ships burning. All because you couldn't understand one simple truth: every life matters." The message played across the Empire. On every world, in every ship, beings of all species heard her words. The Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force, but they had never faced an enemy driven by something stronger: the need for justice. Dr. Walker, now coordinating research efforts across 12 species, received word that the Imperial Palace defenses had fallen. The Emperor's own guards, seeing the inevitable, had turned against him. The being who had dismissed humanity as primitive was now their prisoner. They brought him to Earth for trial. The Emperor, stripped of his ornate armor, stood before representatives of every species his empire had oppressed. But his judges were human, and they ensured his trial was fair, something he had never offered his victims. Tom Miller's mother attended the trial. She watched the once mighty Emperor defend his actions, trying to justify centuries of cruelty. When asked if she wanted to speak, she stood and faced him. "My son wanted to explore the stars," she said. "Because of you, he never got the chance. But his death sparked something you never expected. It united not just humanity, but every species that suffered under your rule. We're creating something better than your empire, a galaxy where every child, human or alien, can look at the stars with hope instead of fear." The empire fell not with a final great battle, but with a series of treaties. World after world joined the new Galactic Coalition, where all species had equal voice and equal rights. The humans who had fought so fiercely for revenge now work just as hard for peace. On the Miller farm, a monument stood where Tom had died. Beings from across the galaxy came to pay their respects to the child whose death had changed everything. The inscription, written in every known language, said simply, "Here fell an innocent child." His death reminded the galaxy that justice knows no borders, and that the strength of a civilization lies not in its weapons, but in its respect for all life.